We all know about the 1997 series King of the Hill. It is still airing on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim block, but I encountered something dark with this series sometime in late 2007. I was in a Goodwill store to buy some N64 games because that store normally had a good stock of retro games. However, I strolled over to the VHS section, just then remembered I owned a VCR. One of the first things I saw was the Titanic VHS tapes. The one that came in 2 tapes, but it was in a dust cover. I thought that it would be a great movie for me and the wife, as she had never seen it before. To ensure that the tape would be functional, I took out one of the tapes out of the dual VHS dust cover, only to see something unexpected. It was a VHS tape with a crooked sticker on it. Written in Sharpie was cough S1E1NR. I inspected the error tape and it said cough S1ERNRP2. I assumed it was part 2. I didn't see why a 1:22 to 23 minute episode took 2 VHS tapes, but I was curious. I bought the 2 tapes for only $2.22. When I got home, nobody was home but me. Therefore, I had to take up the painstaking process of uncoiling the stiff coax cables and the bulky VCR. I soon turned the TV to channel 3 and began viewing cough S1E1NR. It had the regular opening of the first King of the Hill episode, but without the music. It was just a silent camera pan over the city of Arlen. It began normally after that, with Bobby at the baseball game, and Hank yelling at him. As we all know, Bobby did not succeed. This is where everything started getting weird. On the ride home, Hank, Peggy, and Bobby were completely silent. And this went on for about 3 minutes. No one was angry, no one had any expression actually. Abruptly, as the family pulls into a driveway, it cut to a scene inside the house. Hank was yelling at Bobby for not giving the 110%. Hank then picked up the baseball and got into a thrown position. At this point, the video quality was getting very scraggly, and the volume level was raised by roughly 10%. Hank pegged the ball right into Bobby's nose. Peggy was seen in the background crying, and Hank simply told her to shut the hell up. Bobby immediately cupped his nose and ran off to his room, crying the whole way. As Bobby was in the bathroom checking his nose, a social worker came to the door. Peggy greeted him as Hank sat on the sofa, relaxing as if nothing happened. From this point on, the colors began to look more and more like the real episode. The scene with Hank telling the social worker off played as it did in the real episode. Suddenly the scene from the officially aired episode cut to another scene, which was not from the real episode. It was a scene more ragged, yet the audio remained the same. The scene depicted Peggy sitting on the phone late at night, most likely contacting child services to tell them that how Hank purposely threw the ball at Bobby. Hank suddenly walked through the door. He was in his bathrobe and had no glasses. He grabbed the phone. "Who the hell is this?" Hank yelled. "This is Department of Child Services," was the response. Hank's face quickly turned red and slammed the phone back on the wall. He grasped Peggy by the neck. "You gonna get more of those twig boys over here and put me in prison and take my boy away?" he howled. The scene cut to Hank taking Peggy by the back of the neck down the hallway to the backyard. Hank took a propane tank off the grill and shoved the valve into Peggy's mouth. The video then went into silent for a minute, simply showing the propane tank in Peggy's mouth. When the scene started moving and Peggy's eyes slowly closed, "Buck Strickland, forgive me for using propane for this." The only problem was that when Hank said this, he did not even sound like Mike Judge, the creator of the show who voiced Hank. It sounded like an older and deeper voice. The screen went black after this. I fast forwarded to the rest of the tape to make sure there was no content left on it. There was none. I just thought to myself, why so much wasted space? And at this point I was really shaken up. I went to grab a coffee. When I got back, I popped in the second tape. It was just a black screen. I fast forwarded to check for more content and eventually came across some stuff that was really starting to scare me. It was a funeral, but there's very few colors. There's various forms of gray and black and the colors of people's faces. It did not just seem like a real King of the Hill episode. The funeral was for Peggy. Attending it was all the Hill's neighbors, including some acquaintances such as Cotton, John Redcorn, and even Hank was there, claiming that Peggy committed suicide by using a propane tank. As Peggy's coffin was lowered into the hole, it faded to an overhead shot of the coffin being lowered down. That part really scared the shit out of me. It was a somewhat highly realistic image of Peggy in the coffin. The reason why I say somewhat is because it looked real but still appeared to be drawn, not like a real person. It was just a realistic cartoon. Then it cut to Bobby, Hank, and Ladybird, nice. Then they cut to Bobby, Hank, and Ladybird sitting on the porch. Bobby had a queasy face, and Hank had one hand on the propane tank that he used to commit the murder. Bobby turned to his father. Why'd you do it, Dad? He said in a humble voice. I don't know, son. Hank responded. He almost sounded like he was crying. He stood up and walked inside, leaving Bobby and Ladybird, who were still on the porch. It once again cut to a very dull scene. Nothing but black, gray, and the skin colors. It was a scene that literally made me sick to my fucking stomach. It was Hank hanging from the ceiling, with a note pinned on him. It just stayed focused on him swinging back and forth for 2 minutes or so. It then cut to the ending credits, with the normal outro theme music. I was actually kinda laughing on the inside, at the fact that the show was playing the regular ending credits after all that happened. I was really more confused and creeped out at this point. I came across someone on Yahoo Answers who had a similar occurrence as me. They received a similar tape at a store in John Creeks County, in North Georgia, a place about 20 miles from where I got mine. I managed to get on AIM with this person, but I got no answers. I was really curious at this point, so I drove about 40 miles and went right down to Cartoon Network / Turner Broadcasting HQ. I knew that Fox Broadcasting made the show. I assumed that Cartoon Network had every episode on record, as they aired them all. Beforehand, I did some research and figured out who was in charge of broadcasting King of the Hill. So I found a receptionist in the studio and demanded to talk to him. Apparently, though, I needed a guest pass of some sort. I was completely pissed off at this point. I drove back home and put on my old sheriff's uniform. I was the sheriff for John Creeks County about 3 years ago. I went back. Although it was unlawful, I used my badge to talk to him. When I got to his office, he was just sitting at his desk on the phone. I walked up to him, drew the tapes on his desk, and demanded answers. He dropped the phone immediately and grabbed the tapes. I followed him to another office on the other side of the building. There was a small safe in this office. He opened it up, put the tapes in there, and slammed it shut. He then told me to leave. I did not want to act like a sheriff anymore, because I did not want to get in trouble with the law, so I left. I got home and flipped on the TV. Adult Swim was on, and I was relieved to see some real King of the Hill episodes. To this day, there are only 2 copies of this episode, each on 4 tapes, that I can find anything about on the internet. One of them I assume is still locked up in Cartoon Network studios. You may possibly come across more of them in thrift stores throughout the southeast.